Imagine a world with no phone. No calls, text, social media, video games, online banking, and more. Well, it turns out that could soon be our reality. Don't believe me? In 1983, the Challenger space shuttle was struck by a 0.2mm paint chip, leaving this damage in the windshield of the spacecraft. Again, that was only a singular flake of paint, similar to the thickness of a human hair. With that in mind, I want you to imagine what could happen if an entire satellite hit another. A lot could happen when something traveling almost 7 times the speed of a bullet collides with something else going the same speed. The odds of such a thing happening are increasing every time we send something into orbit.
Any object in Earth's orbit is moving fast enough that a collision between even tiny bits of junk could become catastrophic. Experts Donald J. Kessler and Burton G. Corpales published a study called Collision Frequency of Artificial Satellites: The Creation of a Debris Belt in 1978. The study talked about a hypothetical scenario in which debris in orbit would begin to collide with each other, creating more pieces of debris, thus increasing the frequency of further collisions. This then becomes a vicious cycle in which everything in orbit is destroyed, and it continues forever, producing smaller and smaller pieces of debris. Each piece would be equally capable of shredding any object we could put into space. This scenario has since been titled the Kessler syndrome. In such an event, all of our satellites would be destroyed, which would permanently damage our internet infrastructure, which would have a disastrous effect on literally every aspect of society, commerce, and agriculture. Additionally, we would be forever incapable of sending anything beyond the Earth's orbit.
Luckily, that hasn't happened yet. Or has it? On February 10th, 2009, Iridium-33, an active commercial communication satellite, and Cosmos 2251, a derelict Russian satellite, collided with a relative speed of 22,000 miles per hour. Iridium said that they had known of their proximity, however they misjudged their orbital paths. Part of the reason this happened is because many Iridium satellites were having near misses at a range of 3 miles or less with other satellites daily. Afterward, NASA identified more than 2,000 pieces of debris larger than 10 centimeters in orbit, the majority of which was predicted to orbit for another 30 years, and half for more than 100 years. Some experts take this to be the beginning of the Kessler syndrome, but it's not clear yet. According to experts like John Kelvey, the scientific community hasn't yet reached a consensus about whether the Kessler syndrome has begun or if it has not begun, or how bad it will be when it starts. There is consensus, however, that the basic concept is sound and that the space community needs to clean up its act. Most experts do also think that there seems to be a point of no return, in which there is too much debris in orbit to take any effective measures towards cleaning it up. It is certain that we are not only moving towards the point of no return, but that we are getting closer faster.
Take a look at this. It's a website called Stuff in Space. It's a real-time tracker of all trackable objects currently orbiting the Earth. Notice how cluttered it is. This alone is the debris generated from the aforementioned Iridium collision. The main force increasing the risk of a catastrophe is simply the increasing number of satellites in space. Each launch adds one more satellite, which needs to be carefully monitored and creates a bunch of space junk, which may end up orbiting Earth on its own. This graph shows the number of active satellites in each year. One of the major factors that has been contributing to this trend is the rise of new space companies such as SpaceX and Blue Origin. SpaceX is probably the most notable for their Starlink program, which currently has launched 5,828 satellites into orbit, 5,438 of which are still in orbit. These satellites provide internet access to those in remote locations where traditional methods just aren't feasible. It's not that these satellites are a bad thing, it's the current way in which they're being managed and launched is simply not sustainable, and it could become a disaster at any given point.
So, what is there to do? The first option is to throw something at dead satellites to break them up and get them out of the way. But we already know what happens after that. We end up with thousands of smaller pieces of space junk and end up making the problem bigger. so that idea is off the table. The second idea is to use a sort of garbage truck idea, where we would send something up to catch a dead satellite or large piece of debris and then throw it at Earth so it can burn up in the atmosphere. However, this is bad for two reasons. The first is that the object or objects may not burn up all the way, as we saw in Tulsa, Oklahoma on January 22nd of 1997, when a woman was hit by space junk when walking in a park. Secondly, according to Space.com, when an object does burn up in Earth's atmosphere, it releases chemicals which pollute the air and damage the ozone layer. So, the third option would be to shoot high-powered lasers at dead satellites, so they slow down and therefore break down faster, as Real Engineering mentions in their video, The Truth About Space Debris. Although, this could cause some countries to use these lasers as weapons and target other countries' satellites.
Simply, there is no magical solution that currently exists. However, that doesn't mean we can't work towards one today. While researching this video, one thing seemed to be consistent with every article and video we found. They all ended by saying it's a huge issue, but do not propose a solution and say that it is best to leave it up to professionals. The truth is that it's not reasonable to assume that things will just sort themselves out. None of the space corporations are interested in cleaning up space. There's simply no money in it, so why would they fix a problem if it's not hurting their bottom line right now? The only way that anything can be done is if we work together to raise awareness and hope that lawmakers take notice and then act. If you would like to help, consider this. This QR code will take you to our petition on change.org, a website designed for making petitions, many of which have led to real change. Our petition would propose a 3-part solution that involves the creation of laws that would reduce the amount of debris produced with each launch, require corporations to deorbit all derelict satellites or have a reliable means to deorbit them, and to fund active cleanup of Earth's orbit. By signing our petition, you can help increase the likelihood that a lawmaker will take notice and try to make a change for the best. Thank you for watching, and please consider signing the petition.